Hey bitches, it's Sierra.
And hey bitches, it's Morgan.
And this
Is Bitches and Murders. Wow, look at that timing! Hey, it's gonna happen one of these days.
Super emphasis on the bitches and the murders because you're not ready for this case.
Oh, you're right, I'm not.
So, I don't think we have any housekeeping before we jump into this. Not that I can think of.
No, I don't think so. I think we are housekeeping clear.
Hey.
Thank God.
Unlike my apartment. Yikes.
Yeah, I feel that.
So, today I want to talk to you about Madame Delphine Marie Lalaurie.
Well, that's such a pretty name.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
She's not a pretty person.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I've seen AHS. Was it Rona? Which one was she in?
She was in Coven.
Oh, yeah. When they had, like, the flashbacks to the past.
She was played by Kathy Bates.
Mm-hmm. But didn't she have, like, a different name in that, though?
No, it was still Madame Lalaurie.
Okay, so the same person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know she was a real person until I was, like, reading through some article that was like, oh, the most, like, brutal female killers. And I was like, oh, she was a real person?
I think I, like, knew she was a real person, but I didn't really, like, pay that close attention. Because I figured they probably, like, upped it a bit for the show.
No.
Oh, good. I can't wait.
Yeah, so yeah, I didn't realize she was a real person because nobody come for me, but I didn't realize that AHS was pulling from like real life until about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they do that occasionally. I don't think they do it that often though. I think she was one of the few.
I mean, Hotel was based off the Cecil Hotel, and the weird clown dude is based off of John Wayne Gacy, and like, they do it a lot, and I didn't realize that until...
And they borrow, obviously, heavily from, like, the election for Cult, which is obviously, unfortunately, real.
Yikes. Anyway, moving on. Before people come for us. So, I'm going to do this the same way that I did Sister Yanina, which is I'm going to give you...
The end before the beginning?
Yes.
Yes, these are my favorite.
So our ending is that on April 10th of 1834, the Lalaurie mansion caught fire, and it caught the attention of the neighbors because like the Madame Lalaurie was kind of big in New Orleans anyway, so her house catching fire was kind of a big deal. And then people got really interested when Madame Lalaurie was coming out of the house alone with her furniture, but none of her slaves were anywhere to be seen.
You're like, don't you have slaves to carry that stuff?
So the neighbors decided to investigate and ran into the house and found something.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been curious enough about something that's like, I'm going to run into a burning building to see what's up. I'd be like, let's wait till they put the fire out. And then we can, like, go in and see what's up.
Nope, they were really concerned. So they ran in and they found something.
I don't think I have that level of concern for anything.
And, yeah, we'll circle back to that.
Wait, okay, side note. Okay, I don't know if you know this or not. Isn't she buried in New Orleans? Because I did, like, a huge cemetery tour when I went to New Orleans, and I think I might have seen her grave. It sounds really familiar.
That's a matter of debate, which we'll get to.
Okay. Because now I'm just curious, because now I can't remember.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So, Madame Lalaurie was born Marie Delphine McCarty in 1788. Not much is recorded about her childhood, except that her baptismal record was not entered until December 26th of 1793, which is 5 years after she was born. This was pretty common practice for the Catholic Church if the infant was, like, really sickly or close to death. And
they didn't want to do all that in case they died.
Like, they weren't sure if they were going to make it. So, like, they would put off entering their baptismal record until they were sure that, like, they were going to live.
So, like, all of them because it was the 1780s.
Right. Pretty much. So, yeah, that's kind of all we really know about her childhood. She was married not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Oh, baller.
Yeah. Her first husband... Lord be with me. Her first husband, Don Ramon de Lopez y Angulo a Caballero de la Royal de Carlos.
Petition to change my name to that. Just slap a Morgan on the front.
So you want it to be Morgan Don Ramon de Lopez y Angulo a Caballero de la Royal de Carlos.
Yes, exactly. I'll feel like Esteban for Life of Zack and Cody.
Okay, we're gonna move on. So they were married on June 11th, 1800. In case you can't gather from his name, he was a high-ranking Spanish officer. And
No, I couldn't.
you couldn't get that from his name? So 4 years after they were married, they went on a trip to Spain. The specifics are not super well known, but he mysteriously died somewhere in Havana on their way to Madrid.
My favorite.
Yep. And that's kind of all we know. We just know that he mysteriously died. We don't know how. We don't know why. We don't really know when. He just poofed.
So she may have bumped him off.
Yeah. Delphine gave birth to her first daughter. Marie Borgia Delphine Lopez y Anguila de la Candelero, a.k.a. Porquita.
Oh, I love it so much. I mean, I guess if you have 12 names, you have to have a nickname.
You just need...
That also is not part of your name at all.
Porquita.
They couldn't just call her Marie.
Right. So Delphine and Porquita returned to New Orleans because what are they going to do in Spain?
Right. It was just a trip, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're just like, okay, vacation over. He died. We're done.
Well, okay.
Time to go home.
So then her second husband was married in June of 1808. She married Jean Blanc, who was a banker, merchant, lawyer, legislator.
I already like him
He
significantly
had
more.
all of the hats. While they were married, Delphine gave birth to 4 children, Marie Louise Pauline, Louise Marie Laure, Marie Louise Jean, and Jean Pierre Paulin Blanque.
So I'm officially changing it. Like, if I could go back in time, I want to go back in time here, and I want to teach her how to name children. I take back everything I've ever said. That's what I want.
I like the first 2, Marie Louise Pauline, and then Louise Marie Laure.
You can't just put names in a hat and just draw them. Especially if you don't take out the names you've already used.
Oh, and there was Marie Louise Jean. Don't forget about Marie Louise Jean.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
Okay. So her second husband, Jean Blanc, died in 1816. Again, mysteriously, don't know when he died, don't know why he died, don't know how he died. In 1816, he died.
Right. It's hard to tell back then, though, because it legitimately could have just been...
Yeah, it could have been
they don't have
sketchy.
good medicine in the 1800s. It could have just been...
Considering what we're going to find out about her, I'm not going to be surprised if she offed them because she's a garbage human being.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a long time to wait to off someone.
Well, I mean, the first one was 1800s.
Well, the first one was like a
1800,
couple years,
and
right?
then he died 1804. Second husband was 1808. He died 1816.
It's like 8 years.
Yeah, I mean,
I could see it.
you know. So then her last husband, and where she gets her name from, was Leonard Louis Nicholas Lalaurie.
Good old Leonard.
Leonard. I thought I had to hiccup. Oh, maybe I do. Nope, I don't. Okay. They were married in 1825. He was a physician from France, and they met because he was treating one of her daughters for a spinal deformity. So, yeah, just fuck your doctor. It's fine.
Yeah, like, what? I'm assuming probably like scoliosis.
It's not really specified what she had. They just say that she had a spinal deformity, and he was treating her for it.
That sounds like a really bad thing to have in the early 1800s.
Right? Ooh. So, some fun facts. He was 20 years younger than Delphine. So
Go off. But I'm sure she had so much money because she offed 2 of her previous husbands who were both wealthy.
Yep. So, they were getting it.
She probably started running out of money. Like, she married the first one, 1804, he died. And, like, 1808, she's like, ooh, purse strings are getting a little tight. Marry again. 1816, she's like, I'm done with him. And now, 1825, she's like, ooh, it's been, like, how many years? 8 years. I'm really running out of money.
Some people marry for love. Some people...
marry for the cash.
Go off. So he had actually left New Orleans and was going to France. But his brother persuaded him to come back because... surprise, Delphine was pregnant.
I just want to know how she was so fertile.
Freaking fertile myrtle over here.
Yeah, please calm down. Chill your ovaries, please.
I'm trying to think. That's 2 kids with the first one.
Then 4.
4 with the second one, and then 1 with this one.
That's what was 7? I'm so bad with
like
basic math. Yeah, 7. I know math.
So in 1831, they purchased the property at 1140 Royal Street, which is the house that would later burn down. And
It was a big brick house, wasn't it?
yeah, it was like a big mansion. And I think it's open for tours.
Yeah, I think so.
They lived there with only 2 of her children.
Fuck the other 5, I guess.
Yeah, there's nothing about what happened to her kids. Like, I tried, and I could not really find anything definitive. Like, there's a lot of theories, but we don't have time for that. There's 7 kids. We don't have time for 7 kids worth of theories.
That's fine. 5 of them could just fuck them kids.
So reports say that their marriage was not a happy one. Some of the neighbors say that he was abusive, and they would hear the couple arguing profusely on multiple occasions. So no one was surprised when he packed his bags and left sometime in 1834.
Little side note, if you marry someone whose 2 husbands before you have mysteriously passed away,
Don't.
maybe don't abuse. Well, don't. Maybe don't abuse them. Maybe don't yell at them. I'd be pretty concerned.
Yeah. So now we're back to April 10th of 1834, when the Lalaurie mansion catches fire.
Okay.
So the fire reportedly started in the kitchen and destroyed part of the house. And like I said, neighbors were very concerned when Madame Lalaurie came out alone and didn't have any of her slaves with her. So they went in. They discovered 7 slaves that were starved and chained in the attic.
I'm just like getting flashbacks from the AH.
I know, you're like
AHS,
picturing AHS right now.
Yeah.
Nearly 2,000 people gathered at the home to see the victims and were disgusted by what they saw. And people began demanding that Lalaurie get arrested.
I mean, yeah. I would be concerned if they weren't.
Yeah, like people were so mad about this. Like they were calling for her to get arrested. All of them waited for the sheriff to show up because they wanted to watch her get arrested.
Right.
Spoiler alert, the sheriff never showed up.
Oh.
Which enraged this like mob that was now outside of her
I can't
house.
even imagine like 2,000 people on a street.
Right?
Like that just sounds like so many.
Yeah. So as the day went on and no action was being taken, this crowd very quickly transformed into a mob, and they ransacked the entire house. And I mean ransacked. And I will touch more on that a little bit later, but like they were just pissed. So they started ripping apart the house.
I mean, I guess they didn't really care about crime scenes back then, but that really hurts my heart.
Yeah. Newspapers would go on to call Madame Lalaurie a monster, a demon in the shape of a woman. Fury itself escaped from hell.
I want all of these on my tombstone, but continue. Maybe not the monster, but I like the other one.
Morgan, monster, demon in the shape of a woman. Fury itself escaped from hell.
I love it.
She enjoyed her life.
I enjoyed it.
So Lalaurie never gets arrested. She actually escapes undetected from this mob because they were so focused on like just destroying everything.
Well, not to mention, I feel like it's pretty easy to blend into a crowd of 2,000 people.
That too. I mean, yeah. So as I mentioned, the fire started in the kitchen, and it was actually started by a slave who had been chained to the stove as punishment. And she decided to go on this suicide mission and set the house on fire to bring attention to what was happening.
Smart.
Yeah.
Painful, but smart.
I mean, literal queen.
I'm guessing she didn't survive.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I was going to say probably not.
Yeah. So by this point, you're probably wondering, what the hell did they see that makes them destroy a whole ass house and call for someone to get arrested? Right? You know, you're kind of wondering.
What is it?
I mean, you know better than to wonder, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Yeah, I know better than that.
So the fire, like I said, the fire revealed that there was 7 slaves chained in the attic. What I didn't mention was that they were chained via iron spiked collars. And
like the ones with the spikes going into your neck?
Yeah.
Gross.
And before I really deep dive into this, I do want to point out that the fire was not the first time that she was caught. In 1833,
This is just the year before, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep. She chased a small slave girl with a whip until she fell off of the roof and died. She tried to cover it up by throwing the body in a well. The neighbors saw her do this, and then called the police. She was fined and forced to sell the other slaves, but she secretly arranged for relatives and friends to buy the slaves and then snuck them back into the mansion where they were brutally tortured until April of 1834 when the house
This
caught
just
fire.
like makes me think back to Pachuskin, where he not Pachuskin, Chikatilo, where he literally like someone saw him take the girl and go kill her.
Exactly.
And they were just like, I don't know, man. His wife had a pretty good alibi. I don't know.
This is exactly that. So now we're gonna get into the torture, the abuse, what happened to the slaves. This whole section I titled "Fucking Yikes," just so
From what I remember.
just so you're ready. So like I said, our first incident was the slave that fell off of the roof. This was 12-year-old Leah, and she was reportedly brushing Madame Lalaurie's hair when she caught a tangle and apparently pulled too hard. Lalaurie snapped and grabbed a whip, and Leah ran.
Yeah, smart girl.
Madame Lalaurie chased her up to the roof, and what happened next is kind of a matter of debate. Some say that Leah lost her footing and fell off of the roof. Some say that Lalaurie pushed her, and some say that Leah jumped on purpose because she'd rather be dead than deal with Lalaurie.
Honestly, I don't have a guess. I feel like it could be any of
Honestly,
them.
like any of those are probable options, which is horrific.
Oh, I can't imagine being the person that's like, she's like, oh, come brush my hair. And you're just like, oh, well, is it my turn to leap off a roof?
I feel like of all the things to snap at somebody for, catching a tangle in your hair.
I mean, I get pretty mad when people pull my hair, but like not enough to chase them off of roofs. You know,
I mean,
maybe it's just me.
You helped me dye my hair earlier, and you did catch a tangle, so you know.
I mean, you didn't chase me off a roof, so
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I wanted to record first, you know. Put the listeners.
You gotta
first.
get more episodes.
So now we'll move on to what was in the attic. So in the attic, they found cages of various sizes, different apparatuses to suspend or stretch a person, whips of various shapes and textures, and other torture devices.
So just like a medieval torture chamber, essentially.
A little bit. One slave was found with a hole in his head. And some accounts say that there was a wooden spoon sticking out of the hole to like stir his brains.
This just actually makes me flash back to Jeffrey Dahmer, how he would drill holes in their brains and like
Yes.
insert like chemicals and do weird things because he thought it would make them into sex slaves.
Yep.
Update, that doesn't work. Don't do it.
Please don't
I
try
didn't
it.
feel like I need to say that, but now I feel like I need to say that. Don't do it.
0 out of 10 would not recommend.
I just like I can't imagine I just can't imagine just being like, I'm gonna drill a hole in your head and your punishment is I'm gonna stir your brains.
I'm gonna take a wooden spoon and just stir it up.
Just
Ugh. I just gave
See
myself chills.
what
imagining that.
happens. I just want to think of the Pachuskin thing with the bottle.
Charles is so uncomfortable in the corner. I'm sorry.
I feel like brains would actually be kind of hard to stir. They have more resistance than you think.
Yeah, they might be a little. Anyway, we're moving on.
Anyway, moving on.
So all of the slaves found were described as skeletal because they were so starved. All of them were chained in different positions. So some of them were chained like on their knees, some with their hands above their head. All of them had those iron collars on with the spikes that kept their head in one specific position.
Right, so they couldn't shift at all.
Exactly. In the corner of the room was a hide that was hung against the wall. Some accounts say that it was human skin. Others say it was just a cowhide.
I'm sure there's not really a super way they could tell back then.
I mean,
either.
what are they going to do? Test it? Like, they don't.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Next to it were different objects for flogging and a stepladder. The stepladder was to give her a better vantage point.
Right, because
So
if
she
I
could,
remember,
you know-
wasn't she pretty short?
Yeah, she was little.
She was like a little, but she was like short and like bigger. I'm just picturing Kathy Bates, but I
so
don't
it's actually
think
not
any
Kathy
of that.
Bates. Like, she was actually really pretty, Yeah, I'll show you the pictures of her. She was actually kind of pretty.
Okay, I was gonna say until you see the pictures, all I'm thinking of is Kathy Bates.
So the hide that was hung was meant to catch the blood so that she could see exactly how much they were bleeding when she was flogging them.
I don't feel like a hide would show blood that well. I feel like you could have just used like paper or something more effective. But but she's a woman. She's gonna just bought white fabric. But okay. Whatever. Go on.
No, I'm not gonna question.
I guess you could hose a hide off, though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she can't hose anything. They don't have hoses, but
no, but you could make somebody like scrub it. Maybe I don't know.
Anyways, that's a weird flex, but okay.
So the 7 that were found were alive, obviously.
Right.
But in the not so much the basement, but like under the house, there was bodies that were found. Some of these bodies had their mouths stuffed with feces and then sewn shut.
I literally almost made a human centipede joke at the beginning of this episode, and I am really kicking myself that I didn't. Right. I'm really mad at myself now.
You're welcome for that.
It was perfect. I could have said it.
So everything I've talked about so far has been, like, confirmed.
Like, right, like these are actual.
Like, definitely happened. Everything after this may or may not have happened. There's not a whole lot of documentation that says one way or another.
Right. I mean, it was the early 1800s, so not a lot of documentation on anything.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was true, because she's, hasn't done too well up until this point. So
right.
Saddle up, kiddos. So another thing that was supposedly found was a female slave whose bones were broken. And then she was forced into a cage that was shaped in such a way that when her bones re-healed, she resembled the crab.
Okay, so story time, very, very short story time.
Oh, no.
I went to the tower, like the Tower of London, when I was in England. And in the tower itself, they have a museum of, like, medieval torture devices. So I've seen one of those, like an original one that was actually used in the Tower of London. It wasn't quite crab-like, but like they would break all your bones and then put you in like a cage that was like 1.5 by like 1.5. Like it was like really tiny.
Yeah, it was meant to make you heal really stupid.
Mm-hmm. And then you'd be like a cube person. Yeah. I mean, you would just die, but theoretically you'd be a cube person.
I like that Charles isn't even making eye contact with me anymore.
I kind of like the crab person better. I mean, if you're going to break all my bones, don't make me a cube. Make me a crab. Don't break all my bones, though.
There was also reportedly a male slave whose intestines had been pulled out from his abdomen and then tied around his waist like a belt.
A garter belt? I take it back.
Nope, you've already said it.
The worst part is that he lived for quite I mean, you can live quite a while with your intestines spilled out. Mm-hmm. As long as you didn't perforate them.
Nope, they were just
I mean, you have a lot of intestines. Wow, that's...
Our next friend who was found was... unidentifiable. Wow.
Well, I'm sure most of them are pretty oh man, now you passed it to me. Unidentifiable because they were just slaves, and I feel like no one cared too much about identities, probably.
Not so much of who they were, but most of the time you could tell, like, was this a man or was this a woman?
Gotcha. And this one was just like,
this one
I don't know.
You could not, because our friend here was skinned so that their muscle was visible, but they weren't.
Ramsay Bolton, but continue.
Yes, exactly. Like this, reportedly, this slave was just hanging in a corner with like their hands above their head, and was just skinned so that all their muscle was exposed.
So they're just bad at anatomy, because you can definitely tell if that's a man or a woman by musculature.
You would think so,
but I mean.
It's
go off 1800s. It's not really that hard.
She also reportedly had slaves who were covered in honey and then had various insects set upon them. So,
I think I would pick that one.
Really?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the insects.
I don't
Because it takes like 30 bee stings or something like that to like kill you. Like really doesn't take that many. It's like lower than you'd think. So if it was like bees, I'd be like, bring it.
Why
Like
do you
30 and
know
I'm like
this?
dead. I don't know. I'm allergic to bees, okay? One kills me. So
Okay.
I would definitely pick that one.
We're gonna go look at Morgan's basement later and make sure that there's nothing.
Unless it was like cockroaches or something, then I'm out. I'm out.
Yep. Nope. One of
Make
my
me a
coworkers
crab.
is like that too. Just cannot do cockroaches.
Yep, nope, make me a crab. I'm not into
Why is that the one that you keep circling back to?
I don't
that
know.
sounds
It's
the
my
most
favorite
horrific.
one. I don't know. It just
You're insane. Anyway.
if I go out with a bang.
So we'll move on to happier topics. So all of the slaves that were found alive were provided food and water and medical care, and most of them made it through, and then they were set free because
They're like,
luckily people were like, you've been through some shit, we're just gonna, you just go on your merry way.
right? Like normally we'd want to enslave you, but like you
ju-
just leave, please. Just
You're an
out of my sight. Thank you.
Get out of here. Just go. Like I said, the Nurbers.
That's staying in. What did the Nurbers say?
The neighbors had, like I said, they had ransacked the entire house, and I do mean everything. Like they destroyed the furniture, the works of art that were left were torn to shreds, dishes were shattered, the beds were torn apart, and the feathers from the beds were just thrown outside.
That sounds amazing. Petition to ransack a house, please.
So, like, just picture this. Like, there's a house that's partially burned, and on the street is just feathers.
That sounds
As well
amazing.
as-
I mean, minus all the slave part, like that's fine. That doesn't need to happen. But if someone could just give me a house that they don't care about, and I can just
throw
destroy
feathers everywhere.
everything in it, that sounds amazing. The ultimate de-stress room.
They have one of those in Detroit.
I know. I've always wanted to go.
But yeah, like, so, and I do mean everything. Like, every single dish that she had, shattered. Every single piece of furniture, torn apart, broken apart, ripped apart. All of the mattresses, the beds, the dressers, the mirrors, everything was destroyed.
You know what my favorite thing to do is when I find a crime scene? Destroy it.
Destroy everything.
Everything.
I mean, you have to remember, like, these aren't people thinking about a crime scene. This is just a mob that's 2,000 people strong that's just like, fuck this bitch. And
I wonder,
just
like,
tore
how
everything
many
apart.
people got into the house. Because, like, obviously, you can't fit 2,000 people in a house, even, like, a big house. So I
Yeah.
wonder, like...
I mean, a fair amount had to have made it in there. Because
I'm sure, like, at least 100.
every report that I've read said that, like, the house was a waste zone. And, like, literally all that was left was the walls.
It was probably just so choked with people you could barely move. And
Yeah.
people just, like, ripping everything apart.
Just ripping it all. So like I said, Madame Lalaurie escaped during this whole frenzy. She left all of her children behind.
All 2 of them. She already left the other 5 somewhere else.
She fled to France. This is where there's a lot of, I guess I'll call it continuity errors, because nobody's really sure what happened to her.
Well, I mean, yeah, she was on the run. I think that was
Yeah.
kind of her point.
Some say that she later returned to New Orleans under a new name, but I did find a death certificate for Delphine Marie Lalaurie in France with a date of death of December 7th of 1849.
Yeah, I don't think she's stupid. I don't think she would come back to New Orleans after all that.
Right.
I don't really see that happening.
Yeah. So that death certificate is from Paris, and again, there's more continuity errors because people are like, well, some people say that she was buried in France. Other people say that her remains were quietly returned to New Orleans and she was buried in the St. Louis cemetery. So there's like not a lot known about.
Yeah, that was the
what
one that I
hell
went
happened.
to.
The St. Louis cemetery?
Yeah.
I mean, I buy that her remains were quietly returned to New Orleans and buried there.
But then if you think about it, like,
by whom?
Yeah, I was going to say, but like, I wonder how her family felt about this.
Yeah.
Like, were they...
Well,
I mean, I'm just trying to imagine how I would feel if, like, my family member was turning people into crabs. Like, I don't know how I would feel about that. Like, if I found out, like, my cousin was Ramsay Bolton, just skinning people in his basement, I don't think I'd want to be like, hey, I'm going to take your remains and I'm going to put them back where you like to live. I'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah, and there's some reports that say that she kept in contact with some of her kids. Because, like, some people claim that there's letters between her and her kids where, like, she flees to France and then she writes one of her kids and is like, I want to come back. And they're like, no, you dumbass.
You dumb fuck.
Like,
no.
Stay in France.
Yeah, that's why I feel like she wouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
Because also, like, I'm sure there was such a price on her head.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And the thing is, too, like, I'm sure she knows she came back that she probably wouldn't get a trial. I think people would have, like, if they caught her, they would have literally just, like, ripped her apart.
Yeah.
Just like her house.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then the other kind of part of mystery in this story is with her being in France, there's no record one way or the other of if she was able to get slaves while she was in France and start this all over again.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, too, did she just now own slaves in, like, the 1830s? Because, like, I'm sorry, that behavior doesn't just, like, start.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just like, oh, I'm, like, 40-something now, I'm gonna start flaying people in my basement. Like, there's a lot of build-up to that.
Yeah, and that's why I can see where, like, she killed her first two husbands. Because, like you said, this doesn't just come up out of nowhere. Like, this, somewhere it's deep-rooted in her that made her go bonker
Well, and
balls.
that's why, I think it would take more than, like, 2 years to get to the point where it's like, I own slaves, and now I'm breaking all their bones. You know what I mean? Like, you would, like... Because I'm sure she got slaves, realized how much power she could, like, exert over them, and then, like, that made her feel good, and she, like, continued and continued and continued. But, like, that's a big incubation period. Like, that doesn't usually happen in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, and there's some speculation about it being because of Leonard being abusive, but...
Like, maybe she just had, like, a mental break, like a psychotic break.
But, I mean... trying to think. They married in 1825, and then he left in 1834. I feel like that's
But she'd already chased someone off a roof in 1833.
Yeah.
And that was before he even left.
Right. So I don't know that I mean, maybe the abuse probably played a part into it, but I don't know that it...
Well, I'm sure she lost... Well, it kind of sounds like in her other relationships that she was probably the one in control. I mean, especially since she literally killed them. Mm-hmm. Like, she exerted all the control. But with having a husband who was abusive, she probably felt like she had lost all of that control she spent her whole life building.
Yeah.
And I could see where she would lash out and try to exert more control over her slaves. Mm-hmm. So it probably started out, like, I mean, he probably owned slaves before they even got married. I think if he was so rich and stuff.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think she inherited the slaves when she married Leonard.
Right. So they probably started out small back when they got married in like 1825, and that like 5, 6, 7 years like built up to the point where it was in 1833.
Yeah. And it's not like she's not used to being rich. Like the McCartys, like her maiden name, they were big in New Orleans. Like they were all officers, they were all like lawmakers, they were an influential family in New Orleans. So she grew up,
and then she married an officer,
wealthy, and then she married a high-ranking Spanish officer,
and then the bank
married
guy with all the hats,
bank merchant, lawyer, legislator.
I just imagine him as like literally a man just wearing like 7 hats. That's just how I'm picturing him in my head.
He's like, "Oh, do you need to talk to the banker? Hold on, that's not."
Well, that just switches.
I just squeaked.
He's just got a lot of hats. It's fine.
But yeah, I don't know. I would like to know what made her snap, but unfortunately she is very dead. And I don't have the ability to talk
I would hope she is very dead.
And I am not able to talk to dead people, so I will not know why she snapped. And unfortunately, 1800s doesn't keep super great records of everything.
I kind of feel like it is what we saw. I'm sure the abuse played a part, but it kind of sounds like she already had these tendencies before any abuse came around. I wonder if that's why her kids, like, I wonder if her kids, like, left.
Yeah.
Or, like, if her husband was like, you can go live with your aunt or something because your mom's a crazy fuck. Like,
Right.
get out of here.
There's 5 kids.
We don't know what happened.
We just don't know what happened before she even marries Leonard.
Because if she was already, like, exhibiting these tendencies, it's not that surprising that the kids would be like, oh, yeah, can I live with grandpa or, like, literally anyone else?
Literally anybody but you.
Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
There might be, like, a mental illness or developmental thing, too. Because, remember, like, the Catholic Church didn't acknowledge her until she was 5 years old.
Right, so she clearly had some sort of illness. Well, and she also passed down a spinal deformity. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously, there's no way to tell if that's from her or from her husband. But like, it could show that she has some kind of like
some
genetic issues already running in the family.
Yeah. Some developmental something or other.
Yeah, or maybe she was like a preemie or something and had issue. It's the 1800s. No, it was the 1780s. So literally anything.
Yeah, literally anything. And it's not going to go recorded. Like,
yeah, it's so hard too because it's like, especially like for someone like me, like it's so easy to want to like diagnose people from back then, but like without knowing her childhood or her issues or anything, like it's really hard to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is. I kept that as not like super gross as possible, but everything she did was super gross, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
tried to keep it not.
I just can't imagine like.
I still make.
She really just must have been running unchecked.
Oh,
like,
completely.
Like her husband just must not have cared. Because I mean, it sounds like she got most out of hand when her husband left. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure this stuff was happening while he was still there.
There's one theory that I read that because he was a physician, his official title is physician, but if you look at it in modern day terms, he's probably more like a chiropractor.
Gotcha.
And there was one theory that like the slaves were used for medical experiments, and so think of it as like a Elizabeth Bathory type situation where like her husband taught her all of this really disgusting stuff, and then she realized that she loved it, and then she kind of like warped into its own monster.
Really, like she took it and ran with it really hard.
Yeah, so like think of it like an Elizabeth Bathory situation where like he was using the slaves for medical experiments, and then she realized that she loved like the power of it or something or other, and then warped it into this really disgusting thing.
Well, and I'm sure if he was abusive too, like that probably wasn't just placed on her. Like that was probably also on the slaves as well. Sure. Probably maybe not to the extent that she did, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the bone thing was something she learned from him, because a chiropractor, like they know.
Oh, like breaking it and rehealing it?
Yeah, like they know bones and joints and stuff really well. That's pretty much literally all they know. Like that's their only focus, really, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something she directly either learned from him or like if he had. I'm interested I want to know. There's no way to know, but like I want to know how much he had a role in what happened. Mm-hmm. Like maybe he just got tired of it and he dipped, but like how some of this had to happen while he was still there. Like did he know about it? Did he help with it? Did he dip because he was like, this bitch is out of control, she's gonna get caught?
Yeah.
Or did he dip because like you know what I mean? Like I feel like people didn't really dip out of their marriages like that back then as often.
Yeah. I'm not too surprised that he dipped, because like he had to be persuaded by his brother to come back to marry her because he got her pregnant.
Yeah, that's fair. So he didn't really want to be with her in the first place.
Yeah, he kind of like married her out of obligation.
I don't know. I still kind of feel like he was like, oh, she's going to get caught.
Yeah.
Because like it did work out. Like if most of that had been him and she was just helping and then he just left and the house caught on fire, now it's all on her. Mm-hmm. Like no one even knows he existed. Like I've literally never heard of him until you just told me about it. You know what I mean? Because now it's just solely on her head forever.
That's a fair point, actually.
Yeah. So I'm curious how much
I wish there was more documentation from this whole thing, but
especially because I could see the flaying. I could see both. Because I could see her being like wanting to exert like the ultimate control over someone, but I could also see him as a medical doctor wanting to, I mean, not only hurt people, but to like look at muscle structure.
Ooh.
Because like who looks at muscle structure when the person's still alive? It's like not really that possible back then, at least.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, because some of the things I could see to have more of like a doctory feel to them. Mm-hmm. Like also I could see the flogging too, because like if he's measuring how much blood like was taken from them, like you could gauge how much they can lose and still be okay. Like at what, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of gauge like how much the human body can lose and how much like trauma it can endure and like what that does to the human body.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm saying he did some of it.
I have more questions.
Final
now.
position.
Damn it.
Final answer. D. He did some of it.
D. All of the above. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know.
I think I'm going to go back and watch AHS Coven after this.
I literally did that while I was researching this.
Now I need to go back. That's my least favorite season, though. Don't come for me.
What?
That and Asylum.
I can agree with you on that one.
I was so excited for it to be witches, and then I didn't like it that much.
That's fair. I'm not gonna.
But now I need to see all the crab people again. I don't think there was crab people in the show, though.
I feel like they left that part out. But anyway, now that we've gotten into some really disgusting things.
Really disgusting side notes anyways.
I tried so hard to leave it on like a happy note of like
I ruined that.
The slaves got care and like they got free and you know she's dead and then you just brought it right back to the disgusting stuff. I tried.
That's what I do every time.
I tried to give you guys a
happy
semi-warm fluffy ending, but
happy note. The slaves were saved.
Yes,
they were good. They were saved. I'm sure they were heavily traumatized, but they were saved. They're okay.
They're okay.
Slavery's bad.
Okay, let's just wrap this up. So,
follow
social
us
media.
on all the things. All of them.
Facebook is Bitches and Murders. Twitter's is Twitters.
All of them. All 70 Twitters. They're just @and murders.
Instagram is Bitches and Murders Podcast.
Mm-hmm. YouTube is also Bitches and Murders Podcast. Apple.
Email us.
Same.
@beandmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, email us. Our email's empty.
Yes, send us all of the emails.
Yeah, tell us what you want. Be more vocal.
What you really, really want.
We're not the Spice Girls.
Copyright. I don't own the rights to that.
It's okay. It's not copyright if you just sing it yourself.
Oh, is that how that works?
Yeah.
Oh,
if I ever
sweet.
make YouTube videos, I'm just going to badly sing the songs and dub them over, but it's fine.
Oh, I almost forgot. We made a You Now, which is like a live streaming thing. So if you're super impatient and don't want to wait until Mondays, then we're going to
start doing that
when we record, and then you can see all of the behind the scenes nonsense of us coming completely unglued.
Yes, we're also tempted. I was tempted to stream on Twitch at the same time that we stream on that, like one phone doing one and one phone doing the other. So if you're more of a fan of You Now or you're more of a fan of Twitch, we can put up a poll.
Yeah.
But yeah, vote in the poll. Let us know.
Do all of the things.
Do all of the things. Get to see all the bloopers I'm going to cut out of this episode.
Yeah, until we get all of that set up, just keep it spooky, bitches.
Keep it spooky.
But not so spooky that you torture people in your attic and make them into crabs. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, don't make anybody into crabs. Bye.
Bye.